You prefer us to believe in vampires?
If they exist, yes.
Awake in my crypt at the stroke of night, I'm the vampire rhymer ready to recite. Yo, James Pyle, master of speech, let's chop it up with lessons that teach. Handsome Jim, conversations friend, talking back and forth, need no pan. Control the convo, make it dance, your body talk puts me in trance. Awake in my crypt, vampire rhymer, vamp. Awake in my crypt, vampire rhymer, vamp. Yo. Well, welcome, James Pyle. As you can see, it's just been a moment in my hourglass, just a few sands of time since you mentored me last. And I hear from my family members in Europe that you are touring some of our family castles, which is, I assume, why you're a bit tired, jet lagged today.
Well, I spent 5 days in Denmark, and they were whirlwind days, students and things to see, tourist stuff for sure, great food, great company. So that back and the time comes and goes, and I'm glad to spend some time with you in your new studio. I think we have some commonality. I look behind me, and I have gray walls, and you have a gray wall, and I don't have curtains, so you got curtains. That's a nice look.
Well, thank you. And yes, I do think we have commonality, and it really makes me feel wonderful when you point out that our backgrounds are similar. And I noticed that our hair and our shirt is very similar today. And I'm wondering, is that something that you call rapport?
Well, of course, anytime we have something in common, and now your hair is silver gray, mine's from age, but you're older than me, but you look younger than I do, and it's that strange thing that you've got going on. That I used to work in cemeteries, but I never talked to anybody that had been in one, and so this is unique to me.
Well, you can extract all the information you'd like about life, the hidden life of cemeteries.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to also then provide you with what you've been looking for since you've come to daylight and to sunshine, and you are unique in that regard. And so the things that we've talked about before, and maybe we can talk about some more, are the things that will help you be more comfortable doing what you do.
Thank you so much. And despite your jet lag, I'm so grateful that you would make time for me today, because after our last conversation, I have implemented some of the things you encouraged me towards.
Yeah.
I am trying to come out of isolation, but I do have a lot of social anxiety, social phobia, etc. So the first thing I did was I let the coffin go. The coffin is it's a pacifier for me. It's how I feel safe. It's my safe space, really. Okay. So I stepped out and let it stay at home. And I also updated my clothing a little bit so that I might blend in a little bit more.
Yeah. I think so. You look like you could be on TV, or you could be walking down the street, and that's a good look.
Thank you. Well, it's to your credit. So I have talked to a total of 3 people since we last met, and that's a lot for me. I hope it's okay that one of them was my hearse driver, but otherwise I did really go kind of wild, and I spoke with 2 other people in addition to him.
Now, wild to you and wild to me, I speak to everybody all the time, and I'm comfortable doing that. And I'm glad you're more comfortable talking to the two or the three people you talk to. 2, 3, 4, next time maybe 10, maybe more.
Well, could you remind me again why it's useful to speak to people?
Well, there's something inside me. It's curiosity, which basically is beside me. But everybody has a story. Everybody has a history. Everybody has something that they know that I probably don't know. So my mantra over most of my life has been, what do you know that I don't know that I wouldn't know if I didn't ask? So I'm not afraid to ask people questions. I'm not afraid to elicit information from people because that satisfies my curiosity and makes connections that make great friendships, great business connections. And it's surprisingly how easy they develop.
So, James, you're helping me understand that it's useful to be curious, because if I'm curious and I want to know what other people know that I don't know, then I have to engage with them, as you call it, or
Yes,
connect
of
with
course.
them, as other people say. And in doing so, I just might learn something new.
Absolutely. It's not a game, but sometimes there's some gamemanship in it. But basically, curiosity is the driver, and then good interrogative questions that start with who, what, where, when, how, or why. And then, of course, if you ask a question, someone answers you with that question, you ask that question again because that's never the whole information about anything in the question. So that I would say that that, and plus there's only 4 things to talk about, makes it simple. Your conversation is going to be about people, places, things, or events in time. And so that's as simple as that, to keep talking to people more and more, and it becomes natural in your unnatural world.
Well, I will say you made that sound simple, and yet it sounded pretty dense and packed for me. I also have a lot of cricket followers who really don't understand all the terminology. So, could you explain, what are you referring to when you say interrogatives?
Oh, okay. You've been taught in school, or we've been taught in school, to have keywords that go back to my old profession as an interrogator, is using interrogatives to get information by asking questions. That's the interrogation connection. And I was in the U.S. Army and was trained in interrogation, and I've been an interrogation instructor, resistance and interrogation instructor, all of those things in a long, almost a lifetime ago. But I've incorporated those now in the new conversation message that I'm trying to get out to people, to have good conversations, meaningful conversations. And those interrogatives are those key words for asking good questions. Every good question should start with a who, what, where, when, how, or why. And then you're going to have a good question. You're going to get a good response.
And why do you want to ask questions with interrogatives?
Well, it keeps the conversation contributing information. If I ask a bad question, example, do you like to go out and to the movies at night? Yes, that's an affirmation, but there's no information. If I say, what kind of movies do you like to watch? And then you tell me a little bit about that, I've got information instead of affirmation, if that makes sense.
It does. And going back to what you described, where you said it was so simple, you said, ask good questions with interrogatives.
Mhm.
Then you said several other things, and honestly, my eyes glazed over because there was so much there.
Well, okay. Let me spread it out a little bit and pause for a moment on each one of those, so that we ask a question. It's a good question: who, what, where, when, how, or why, and I get information. but usually the information that I get isn't complete. So the one lesson that's easiest to teach, hardest for most people to learn, is the follow-up aspect to asking questions. And that is, if I ask a question and I get information from asking that question, I ask that question again. Because no one knowingly and no one normally answers all of that question without some prompting or some follow-up. So that if I ask you, for instance, what you had for a vegan dinner last night, let me ask that question of you. What did you have for your vegan dinner last night?
Well, I had some freshly squeezed blood orange juice,
Mm-hmm.
and I mixed it up with some coconut yogurt,
Mm-hmm.
and I made a smoothie out of it.
Okay, a smoothie, an amalgam of food, and I think it sounded good. So, what else did you have?
Well, then I also had some pum fu, which is like a tofu that's made out of pumpkin seeds. So it's
Oh,
plant-based and high in protein.
I had never heard of that before. So you had your smoothie and your
Pum
tofu
fu.
thing, yeah. That sounds like a whole meal and stuff, but maybe there was more. What else did you have?
Just sprinkled some hemp seeds on it again to get some more protein in.
Okay. That's what I illustrate by saying that, you gave me one answer, but that wasn't the whole answer. And all I did was just be curious that there might be more. When I asked my young daughters what they had lunch for school, they said a sandwich. Well, of course, I think they were served more than just a sandwich, so I'd have to ask them again. And it was crazy for them to have to answer anything to Dad anyway. But it's just a matter of follow up. When you ask a question, ask that question again, and you'll get more information, or you'll find out the end of the information. And that's where you always want to get, that there's more to get, there's more to need. And of course, we're talking about maybe some more serious circumstances in government and business and those kind of things.
Okay. So always ask the same question again.
Yeah, and in a conversational way, not as an interrogator. What'd you have for dinner? What else did you have for dinner? Make it, make it conversational and make it comfortable.
And then in your formula of having this supposedly simple time
Mm-hmm.
engaging,
Yeah.
what else was there?
One other thing, and that is there's only 4 subjects to talk about. Everything in the world falls into these 4 subjects. And the first is people, places, things, and events in time. And if you talk about people, you have to find out about places because everybody's somewhere. And if you talk about places with people, you have to talk about things because it's not just people in a place, but there's usually things involved. It could be machinery, it could be food, could be whatever. And then events in time. When did this happen? When will something take place? When did something happen? So that every conversation about people will include these other 3. Every conversation about an event in time will include these other 3. Every event about something will include these other 3. So once you've talked about all 4 of those areas, you've usually gotten all the information that's available about that matter of subject that you're talking about. And
Well,
I have to tell you this. Normally, that's a 40-hour block of instruction, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day in training people whose job it is to get that kind of information. I'm a human intelligence collector trainer, and that's about 40 hours worth of instruction put out to you in 4 minutes.
no wonder I feel like I drank a gallon of blood. Well, James Pyle, I'm a little confused because, as you know, when I contacted you, I did
Hmm.
so to help me with connecting with people and having conversations.
Hmm.
And my understanding is that you are conversations friend and
I,
that you are
I,
now also my friend and mentor.
uh-huh.
And I'm a little confused because today you sound like a spy master. You sound like you know all these fancy things to extract information. I mean, I'm the one who's used to extracting from people. And I'm hearing you describing not just curiosity anymore, but actually these highfalutin skills. And so I'm wondering, are you not who I thought you were when I hired you to help me?
Well, I have to tell you that there are people that I know personally who are spy masters. One gentleman by the name of Robin Dreek, former Marine Corps officer and FBI spy recruiter, and great author and trainer in all matters of rapport and all matters of trust, all matters of empathy. He's the master of that, and he's a spy master. He is that. And from my experience, I'm more of a uh, collector, and I train to collect. Human intelligence collection is my background for most of my life these days, maybe more than half. But those are years gone by in the military service and in training for business and like. But for now, I want to work with people who need to have a good conversation for their work, for their own interest. And my job these days is help people to have that conversation, not so much collecting, but having a good conversation. And that's where I'm most satisfied these days, to spend time just like with you to talk about these things.
And what makes you interested to use fewer of your skills and kind of water that down to just be having general conversations with people like me?
Well, you said water it down, but in actuality, it's really a distilling. To have a conversation in years gone by with my military experience as an interrogator, that was a basic skill set. That was a basic uh, necessity for the job that I was tasked to do. I had a captive audience. They couldn't leave. They had to participate for their own best interest as well. So that I think that makes it a simpler conversation using different aspects and all that. But today, to have that kind of a conversation where you don't have control over somebody except to engage them with good conversation skills and keep them interested, uh, so that you listen to them and you focus on them, that's a greater skill set. That's a greater benefit. And I think that it's not more common. It's more of a better uh, jewel in all of the valuable things that we do in life. It's a real jewel.
Well, I'd say that's another thing we have in common because I was used to having all of my conversations with my human captives.
Mm.
And now I no longer have that luxury because I'm of the light and I'm vegan. So that's where I do need those, would you call them soft skills of
Okay. Well,
engaging with
they
people?
seem to be soft to it's a better appearance to be soft, but yet there are skills, a hard, uh, tangible skill set, used in a very subtle, soft, and conversational way that people enjoy talking with you, and more people will want to talk to you with those skills.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that word too. When somebody talks to me and they'll make a statement, if I say really, they'll tell me more without me asking for more because they see me tilt my head, smile, lean in, and that tells them I'm interested. That tells them I want to hear more. And since I don't hear well, sometimes I was really, and that tells them to keep talking. And that's a visual cue that goes along with the smile, the head tilt, and the lean in, and people respond to that. So that sometimes you don't have to say another word to get more words, and that's just comes with the experience.
Wonderful. Well, I came to you for your experience, and I'm very grateful to be learning from you. And I'll report in that when you gave me a set of 5 levels for connecting or engaging with people,
Mhm.
I got a little confused because it seemed as if it was all about the car. And I have my hearse driver take me everywhere. So I did ask him to do a slow and go, a drive-by, a stop and hit and run. Anyway, we did all kinds of things in the car, but somehow, as I told you, I wasn't really getting the point of how that was helping me connect with people better. So help me to understand why we're talking about cars and remind me of the point of why, what I was supposed to learn from talking about cars.
Well, okay, cars are a big part of my life. Since I was 12 years old, and I listened to car races on the radio, and I would beg my dad to take my brother and I to actual car races in Southern California. They become part and parcel with Jim Pyle. And I associate a lot of things in my life, key events and things in and around the cars. So that I began to do this training with people who were reluctant and are not comfortable talking to people. I somehow fell back into using car similes to express what I thought they should consider doing. The very first thing I suggest to my students and to those who have me in their employ is to do the drive-by. Now, that's if you're in a vehicle, it's hard to do because you're going to have to shout out the window. But a drive-by is just a walking event. But you're imagining you're passing by somebody, and so I give it that car association, just
Okay,
driving
so
by.
let me stop you there. So you use a car metaphor, but
Mm.
I am meant to imagine myself walking.
Yes, yes. That you want to be as close to this next individual you're going to talk to. So walking down the sidewalk or through a building, and you see someone, and you're going to say something to them as you walk by, because you don't want to. You're not comfortable engaging in a conversation yet. You don't have confidence in yourself to start a conversation with a stranger. So this is going to be just a walk by where you're going to say something to somebody that you don't know, but you're going to walk by them and say something to them, be it about the commonality of the weather of the day, or the what's going on in and around you, the context of the day, or something that they're wearing that you can make a mention of, especially if they have data. That is the easiest thing to do. Somebody's wearing a jacket or a shirt that's got logo or it's got words on it. All you gotta do is say those words sometimes. But so walk by somebody who has a let's say a Ohio State sweatshirt on, and it's obvious that they may be a football fan, a college football fan from Ohio, and even though they might be in Los Angeles or anywhere you might be, and you walk by and say, "How about those Buckeyes?" Now, I know that that's what they call the Ohio State college football team, the Ohio State, and you're going to get a response. because you acknowledge them. And guess what? They wore that just so they could connect with somebody who might be from Ohio. And you're like me, we have commonality, even though we might not even be talking, just because I show you something about me. So I just take what I see and say a little something about it. So that it just becomes the easiest, most, the simplest way to do a drive-by. Say something about what you see. And I don't try to make it personal about their looks or those kind of things, mostly about what they might be wearing that they're telling me is important to them. Um, wow. So yeah, that it's as simple as that.
Okay.
That's a
Well,
drive-by.
gosh, I mean, as it is, I left my coffin aside, my safe space. And now you're asking me to step out of my hearse. And you're saying this is simple.
Sure.
But that's all right. I respect and regard your experience so much that I will try these things. So what's the next car analogy that you had used?
Okay, it's going to be hit and run. Now that sounds bad. Okay, that sounds like we're going to run somebody over and and then drive away from the accident. But by a hit and run, walking down the street, someone's coming your way. This is the next step to engagement, and that is to actually stop and with somebody coming toward you and say something about them that gets a response, and then walk away. So that you're not testing, but you're getting a different rhythm now. It's not just walking by, got by that. And now I'm going to have to challenge myself to actually stop, engage somebody. Now that doesn't mean we have to stop them. They might be standing on the street corner, and we could walk up to them and say, you know, you're dressed perfectly for the weather today. And that could be a simple statement as that, but you stopped, and then they give you a response, and you trust that they'll give you a response because that's a compliment to them. And so with that, you've actually stopped to get a response. The drive-by was just you making a statement and getting comfortable with that. But now the hit and run is to stop and to get a response, and then to walk away. That's your relief. If you're a little more stressed about that kind of an engagement. But we're going to build those as we go along. But that's going to be the kind of thing that you do to actually hit and run, make a stop, talk to them direct, and then continue on. That makes sense?
It does. So
Okay.
I will want to run, but I am to walk away after having said something
Yeah.
to them.
Yeah.
And then
And if
what
you
comes?
don't get a response, just keep walking. Just walk on. It's okay.
Okay. So it's okay to just walk on as quickly as possible.
But you'll be surprised how most people aren't uncomfortable talking with you. You have you have the uncomfortable aspect of talking to people.
That's true. And so what happens next?
Well, this is what I call the ride along. It's a program where it's like a program where you get in line with somebody and you're going to be engaged with them for more than a comment or more than a statement. You may be in line at a grocery store. You may be in line with some people at the Home Depot, wherever the case may be. You may be on a shuttle bus from the airport parking to the airport itself, and you have some commonality with people in time.
Well, James, I am reading this do-it-yourself coffins because I heard that in the 2020s, there's a lot of do-it-yourself. So since I'm reading that, I will want to go to Home Depot and things like that. So that would be a good place for me to do the ride along.
Sure. I remember one time in Home Depot in Springfield, Virginia. I got in line. There's about 4 people in line, and they were all facing away from me. And I just said with a louder voice, "Okay, everybody in line, I apologize." And the people looked back at me and had that quizzical look, you know. And I said, it's my fault because every time I get in line, something goes wrong at the register. They run out of the tape for the receipts, or somebody doesn't have a price tag, and we're going to be here a while. Oh no, that always happens to me. Somebody will say, or yeah, I thought that was just me. And now all of a sudden, I have 4 people talking with me, and I wasn't even being seen by them. And now I'm engaged with them, and we all pass through the checkout, and we go our own separate way. But for a little while, we were. It was like a ride along. We were together. When I got to the airport coming from Denmark, we all have the commonality of waiting for our luggage. And I like to engage the people around me before the luggage starts coming out. And I say, if my bag comes out first, I'm going to buy everybody here a drink. And they all look at me and have that, well, okay. Now, of course, if it came out first, I wouldn't pick it up because I don't want them to have to buy these drinks. But it gets people's attention. It gets them engaged. We have commonality for just this little while. And it's what I would do. And I've been doing this for years. I'm an old guy. I can get away with this. But you look for some way to engage people.
I'm old too.
Normally you wouldn't. I'm sorry?
Well, I'm old too.
Well, yeah, but I look at it and you don't. And the time, that little hourglass has been kind to you. How about you get in an elevator? And I may have been told this story before, but you get in an elevator, you have commonality with people for a short time. And I will get into an elevator and I'll talk to somebody in that elevator or everybody in that elevator for those 2 or 3 moments that we have. A couple, 3 or 4 floors might be the case. But the most wonderful story was a lady was in the elevator with me, older lady, and she had her head down and she had her hands together and she was pressed into the corner of the elevator. And I said, what can I say to this lady who obviously is not wanting to engage? She's more comfortable not talking to people. It's obvious. But I looked at her hands and she had rings on every finger, and those rings had diamonds in them. And I said, I have to tell you that those diamonds are on fire. Her head came up, her hands opened up. She said, if you have them, why don't you wear them? I said, exactly. And she began to talk to me. I didn't ask her any questions. I just made a statement. And that ride along was to me a great gift, because she continued talking to me as she got out of the elevator, walking away, looking back at me, telling me some things as she walked away. So that just becomes the ride along, literally in the elevator.
Well, since I'm learning about being out of the coffin and out of the hearse and out of the house, can you tell me where else I might have ride-alongs?
I like your question. Now I'm going to tell you the secret of that statement. That I'm just freelancing here, but I like your question. Is a better statement than that's a good question. How often have you heard that? That's a good question. A question is just a formula of words. And so when I say that's a good question, I thank you for your formulation. But if I say I like your question, I make it very personal. You have thought something that I appreciate. And so I never say that's a good question, because that's not about you. But if I say I like your question,
yes, and it did make me feel.
So that's an extra added bonus there. Doesn't cost you anything extra. But so where else can we do the ride along?
You mentioned in the line at stores, at the airport,
yeah,
and also in an elevator.
Yeah.
Where else?
That's all I know of. You've taken me to the end of my knowledge, and that's great follow-up. and you don't need me anymore.
We're just getting started.
But that's great. So let's say we've wrapped up the ride along, and then now we're going to have a chance to be more comfortable talking to people, anybody along the street, in line, ride along. Let's go ahead and pull over and park. And that might not be with a stranger necessarily, but you have friends or you have people in your neighborhood, and you want to then test this ability and be more comfortable. And so you have a neighbor who's standing in the yard, they've been doing some yard work and stuff. That's where you go over and you engage that neighbor and you say, there's something you want to talk about. You want to talk about the other neighbors. so, so
I noticed that humans do that a lot.
Yeah. That's a piece of cake. But so now you're in the pull over and park stage, where you engage the individual. You start the conversation. You have a conversation intent. You have something you want to talk about, and then you manage that conversation till the time you want to terminate. Terminate sounds too violent, but to end the conversation, transition from the conversation, so that you engaged, you had the individual, you engage the conversation, you manage the conversation, and you ended the conversation. That's a pull over and park. That's you being in control of the engagement from start to finish, and that's another level from what we began with, just the drive-by.
Well, terminate is a word that I can relate to, and I am working through that.
Yeah.
So what happens next?
Oh my goodness. The only thing that you can take this to the next level is to the roadblock, to keep it in chance with in context of cars and stuff, is the roadblock, where you absolutely interrupt the person that you are wanting to engage with, and begin a conversation, continue the conversation, end the conversation, but you are in complete control, and you stopped whatever they were doing to get this conversation. That could be part of your job, or something. You need to talk to someone, you need to engage someone, and so you set it up on the phone, or you set it up in person, and you make time stop for your conversation. You are absolutely you don't take advantage of an opportunity because somebody's there. You make that opportunity, and that's a little more sophisticated, and we don't need to hang out there too long. But that's the progression that I try to train people to be comfortable from the very beginning of just the drive-by, the hit and run, the ride along, and the pull over and park. Those are the feature ones for sure.
Okay. So what I can start with next is getting out of the hearse and doing some kind of a body language gesture of rapport, and maybe also saying something. Would that be my next step?
Sure, because that's all that the conversation is. But it has to be about listening. It has to be about presenting. It has to be about being comfortable. And that's the thing. Some people are very uncomfortable talking, and it's their job. And so I help them to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's not original with me. That goes back to the Navy SEALs. That's their mantra, to be able to endure, be able to persevere, to be able to be victorious in their mission, is they have to be very uncomfortable sometimes, be very, very comfortable about being uncomfortable, exposed in danger, and yet composed. And so that's what I'm looking for in conversation, composure, and confidence, and getting the best results. So that, and then I have to say that in my experience in my life, the Navy SEALs on both Coronado Island in California and on Little Creek in the East Coast, in the Little Creek, Virginia, that it's been my highest honor to train them in matters of human intelligence collection, in matters of elicitation, matters of negotiation, mediation, all those interpersonal things that they're not all about just guns and shooting. They also have to interact and understand human nature. And in that conversation with people in human nature, I've been honored to be on the other side of the desk with them, training just the things we're talking about here with you.
Well, that's quite an impressive resume and life experience background. And it does explain why your name spells James Spyle. Spyle. Spy Master. I'm sorry. I think so.
Well, I'm honored to by my audiences to be able to continue doing what I'm doing after all these years. That the people are still interested to know what I know and to learn to do what I do, and it's a great honor. And I do hope that when my headstone's up someday, that it says James Pyle, a conversations friend. And I'm like you. I used to drive a hearse back in the day when I was going to college back in Lincoln, Illinois, and working in a funeral home and working in cemeteries. I learned empathy, and though that was a key composite of who I am. I learned questioning from interrogation school. I learned elicitation from John Nolan, who is the master of this thing called elicitation. Worked for him for 9 years. His book Confidential is the not the Bible of elicitation, but it's the codex, the ancient writing, if you will, of how this elicitation thing works, so that I'm a composite of all these experiences that bring together empathy and technique and curiosity and interest, that all distill into what we have as a conversation at the highest level, at the best level, to get the best information, essential information that helps us move forward and be the people we are.
Well, I can hear my cricket followers asking for a deeper understanding of this new word called elicitation. We can leave that for a future conversation if your jet lag is interfering with sharing further.
Well, sleep is a wonderful thing. You've slept for centuries, but sleep is essential for me, and I'm struggling with that a bit. But that's just life and being active at 74 years old.
Well, would it help you to sleep even better if I tell you a few vegan vampire jokes before you rest for the night?
Please.
Okay. So, what did the vegan vampire say to James Spyle?
I'm standing by.
Your conversation skills have a real bite. And how does a vegan vampire start a conversation? With a fantastic opening.
Well, you've come prepared. Yeah, absolutely. And this is a great time of the year for things just like this.
Yes, it is the best time of the year. The time that I can move around as myself and be accepted for it.
Well, we're glad to have you out. And it's good to be here with you. And we should do this again, of course.
Yes, I hope so. And come back to my castle. I'm making it less haunted and more of a home.
Okay.
And I would love you to come visit me again. And I will send my hearse driver for you anytime if you'd like
Can
a
I lay down?
personal
Can I lay
ride
down?
over.
Can I
Yes.
lay down in the back and take the ride?
Yes. Yes. I have a perfectly fitted coffin for you.
And I'll put my hands right over like that. It'll be perfect. Now, I have a question for you. I have this book that I've had for maybe 20 years, and it says where all the famous people are buried, and I don't see your name in it and where you were buried at one time. I don't understand why you have your own story.
Well, in vampire tradition, our burial locations are not to be found. And now that I'm of the light, mine is even more difficult to locate because it is multidimensional. So my power spot, the place where my coffin is based, is in the multiverse, and you will not find it.
Okay. Well, that explains that. But it's just a great time to hang with you, tell you things I know, and you have great curiosity. And if all my students were as curious as you, it would make my job so much easier.
Well, let's bring that forward in all of our students and crickets and any future fireflies that get attracted to our light.
Okay, great.
And with that, I will give you my existential bone blessing, James Pyle.
I take it, and I'm bone tired.
May you awaken.
Yeah, next time we'll be as awake as we can be.
Wonderful.
Right. Bye.
Bye, James Pyle.